Hey, good morning YouTube family. How's everybody doing today? So today I'm going to make another wonderful YouTube video, and we're going to go over a couple things. For Ray, he wanted me to beep the horns on the Baja, so I'm going to do that for you. Jeff, I'm going to go over roof lighting and wiring on the Baja. And then James was asking about the kooky headlights wiring. I'm going to go over that as well. So the one other thing that I personally wanted to go over was this week I was able to remove my rear oxygen sensor, and I did that through open source tuning, and I'm going to go over that a little bit as well on how I accomplished that and how you can do the same thing too with some open source tuning. Alright, let's get started. Alright, so as far as honking the horn goes and how the horn sounds, it is a little bit early, but here you go. So yeah, it's pretty loud, and those Hella Supertones, I think is what they're called. I bought them a long time ago, but they work really well. I don't know if you guys can see this, but that is the only oxygen sensor that I have besides the wideband that's in the top of the downpipe. If you look under here, you can see that I plugged where the rear O2 was, and the wiring harness is back there in the OEM location. It's just hung up. I'm going to show you how I did it. Okay, I don't know how well you guys can see that. Here, let me turn the camera a little bit. That might help. So basically what I did is, you could see these rear O2 sensor categories. So one of them is correction limits, and then you've got closed loop target compensation limits low, closed loop target compensation limits high, and closed loop target compensation limits. I zeroed all of those out. Now these are not just normally going to show up in your ROM. There is a thread on ROMRaider called AF3 compensation or rear O2 sensor. They all lead to the same thread, and it basically allows you to eliminate the rear O2 sensor. There is some code that you have to patch into your 32-bit base, because this ROM that I'm using is an 04 STI, and it's a 32-bit base. And as far as 16-bit goes, I believe there's a way to do it there, but I'm not familiar with those ROMs as much as I am the 32-bit ROMs. So anyhow, that's how you do it. There are, let's go down here to the check engine light or the diagnostic trouble code section, because I'll show you the ones you're going to have to turn off. So you got P0037 and P0038. Those have to do with the rear O2, and then if you jump down and add 100 to those, you'll see that 137, 138, and 139 also have to be disabled. Those all have to do with the rear O2 sensor. If you forget to disable them, you'll get a check engine light, and your cruise control light will flash. It's real easy to go in and just disable them and flash again. But anyhow, I figured I'd show that guys to you, and hopefully that helps some of you out. Okay, Jeff, we're going to go over how I did the roof lighting and the wiring. And so I'm going to climb up inside the Baja in order to show you this. Anyhow, normally on a Baja there's a sport activity light wiring, and there's actually a plug inside this third brake-like housing. It's an OEM plug. It goes all the way up to the radio harness, and then that radio harness area, there's a relay under the dash that I just bypassed in order to run this on just a metal toggle switch. But you can see I ran my wiring along this roof rail here, and I used I'm an electrician, so I used what's called saddle straps, and I screwed those into the actual roof rail right there all the way down, so that gave me something to tie wrap to. This rear light bar is attached to two things. It's attached to the cargo light, which they're normally in the third brake housing here, these guys, this clear section, but this entire thing is a brake light now, so it eliminated that, and I made the whole thing a brake light. There's red LEDs in there. But this is attached to the reverse gear sensor, so when you back up it automatically turns on, and then you can also turn it on with the cargo light button. I spliced those wires together in the passenger kick panel area. There's an area there that I figured out I could splice them together. So I hope that answers your questions about the rooftop lighting. If you have another type of Subaru, there's usually a third brake light on some of the newer ones, and there's a rubber grommet there that gets into the roof liner. That would be where I would go if you're going to run some rooftop lighting, and then basically come out like I did here and run along your roof rails the entire way down. I hope that helps answer your question. One thing I really love about Yeti is the remote start. That's pretty awesome, right? On a manual transmission, 6-speed STI, remote start. A little wet out today, and it's supposed to start snowing, but let's go for a little drive. You can see on my laptop setup that I have here that I run ROM Raider Logger. It just gives me a little bit of a better overview of what's going on with the motor. The motor's pretty stout, and I don't really need to worry about it too much. But if we're up at Mount Hood with like the mat tracks on, we're up at Mount St. Helens with the mat tracks on, it's a really good idea to just kind of keep an eye on some more of the parameters. The one in particular that I like to keep an eye on is like coolant temperature. That's pretty important. And then you definitely want to make sure you're getting all your fuel. And you can do it without this. It just gives you a more digital, definite number rather than looking at the gauges, which are just kind of blinky. The actual wideband, the Innovate LC1 wideband sensor that I have is connected to my air fuel gauge, so that's pretty helpful. And I've basically deciphered the OEM coolant temperature gauge, so I can tell, you know, what exactly the temperature is just by looking at the gauge. I figured out what the actual numbers that reference where the needle is at, so that's kind of helpful. But as far as everything else goes, it's just really good to know what's going on with the motor. I also use this if I throw a check engine light for whatever reason, or if I need to make a quick map change. You're able to do that because you have your laptop with you, and you can make a change right there on the fly and flash the map and then continue going. You don't have to data log and then go home and connect something to a computer and something like that. So it's for me, it's a better setup. Other people who don't know how to tune or they're not as familiar with it might get a different type of setup for tuning. But for me, this works, and I really enjoy it because I learn a lot as I'm doing it. So something that I did years ago was I just wanted to teach myself how to tune, and so this ended up working out really great because I had a couple of laptops sitting around, and I started off with those, and they're just little netbooks. These are just little 10-inch netbooks, and they're really inexpensive. inexpensive. I think you can go on eBay and get them for like 50 bucks. And then all the software that you need is free. So that's a bonus, you know. The cable that I use to connect to the ECU and talk to the ECU is a Vagcom cable. And those are, once again, you can get those on eBay. I think they're like anywhere from $10 to $20. And they work, you know, fairly well. And they don't cover all models though. For some models you need a Tatrix because there's a CAN bus on some of the newer Subarus. But as far as like from, you know, 04 to 07, I know that area, and I know most ECUs can be controlled with a Vagcom cable through there. I've actually done it with this netbook, so that's kind of handy. We're going to go out on the freeway here for a little bit, and I'll give you a little, you know, getting on the freeway type acceleration, and then we'll come back to you at the end of the video here and wrap the video up. But I'm coming up to the highway here. The one other thing I'd like to say is that, you know, some of you guys have just purchased your Subarus and you have these big goals. Set a small goal for yourself. It's really handy to set something that's realistic and not something that's like $30,000 later. And I know everybody wants instant gratification when it comes to modifying their cars and whatnot, but if you just take your time and plan things out, you're going to find that you're a lot more successful and you'll save some money in the process. For me, it was a huge learning curve, and it was expensive because everything I was doing had not been documented or done before. So for me it was, and I was fine with it because I really wanted to learn on my own. But anyway, here we go, we're getting on the freeway. Normally not the case. I mean, yes, you can break stuff. I mean, I've broke axles, but I carry spare stuff with me now, so that's pretty handy. But anyways, I wanted to give you guys a little drive around and a little, you know, a little bit of information that I'm thinking that you guys will find helpful, and I'm hoping that you guys find it helpful, and I will continue to make more informational videos come up with some new things that you guys may or may not have seen or tried before. I'm sure you can barely hear me over the motor there when I'm accelerating, so I'm going to stop talking. Anyways, here I'm going to wrap up the video, and I'll see you guys in a minute. Alright guys, I want to thank everybody for taking time to watch my video. If you found this video helpful, like, subscribe, share it as much as you want on social media. I really appreciate the traffic. I also want to let you guys know that I did get my book published finally. So here it is. It's a nice big book, as you can see, and it's printed up with lots of pictures. I also give a bunch of tips and tricks so you don't end up making the same costly mistakes that I made learning along the way. I will post a link at the bottom of this video in the description. So I appreciate everybody's support on that, and for those of you that have already purchased my book, I really appreciate your feedback on Amazon. That has helped me immensely. And like I said, if you have any requests on videos that I should do, please post those in the comments, and I will catch you guys next time. Alright, take care, bye-bye. So James, we're going to go over the kooky headlight, the JDM wiring for the HIDs. This was actually a pretty simple project. The one thing that you are missing is 3 wires for the leveling motors, and I'll show you that here. Let me put this in my pocket. So yeah, I think I'll show you on this side because it's less cluttered. You can see, like right here, there are 3 wires. This is your leveling motor. The actual harness, there are wiring directions on, I believe it's a Legacy SLI board. If you go on Google and you type in JDM Legacy B4 headlight wiring, there is a thread with lots of pictures and diagrams. And for me, all I did was cut the factory harness off, and this headlight actually came with the JDM harness on it, and I started connecting wires and using the switch inside to figure out how the headlights were going to work. So for me, it was just trial and error of figuring out which wires to connect to the OEM wires to get it to work. But it does work. The leveling motors work. I have a separate video back quite a few years ago that I did when I first installed these, but I hope that helps answer your questions. I think I'm going to take the Baja out for a drive and set the camera up on the inside. People are always asking, what does it sound like, what's it to drive, so I'm going to do that, and we'll be back with you here in a second.